We're four friends with hot takes on food media.
And we're here to review and recap all kinds of food shows in bite-sized seasons.
Plus, virtual potlucks, cooking adventures, and food memes.
Welcome to Pod Appétit Gourmet Takes.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
Hey, it's Justine.
And it's me, Meg. Welcome back to Pod Appétit Gourmet Takes. This season, we're covering Nadiya Bakes, where Nadiya Hussein returns to baking, her happy place, and spotlights creative kindred spirits. On the menu for today's episode, we are talking about Nadiya Bakes Episode 3, Savory Bakes, and Episode 4, Baking with Chocolate. But before we get into Nadiya Bakes, we're going to find out what we've been cooking, eating, and just generally getting up to culinary-wise in the kitchen or at restaurants or whatever. So, Amanda, what's been going on in your life?
We now have a fridge, guys.
Whoa!
Which is very exciting. We don't have any sort of heating implements yet set up, but we have a fridge. So
You're halfway there.
yeah. We're getting there. It's really exciting because our fridge, this is the first time either one of us has had a fridge that has like an ice maker and water thing in it. And Jeremy and are just like, this is game changing. This is amazing. And we're so excited, and we are constantly getting our water from our fridge little
You're
door
just
thing.
like those rich people.
Yeah, hand me down fridge from a rich friend. Yeah, so, we haven't been making a lot of food, still dealing with all the move stuff. We've painted a bathroom. That's been a thing that we've done since the last time, which is not food related, but...
Prioritize that oven. You have to for podcast reasons.
Yes, I know. I'm going to convince him. He talked me into a TV instead of an oven this past week.
What?
I can only fight so many battles. But I got to watch today on our new big TV.
Oh, the show that
Yes,
we're talking
the
about.
show we're talking about.
So, yeah, there's a correlation.
Yeah. For 4th of July, we went and ate at our favorite Chinese buffet because we wanted to support local and immigrants. So, yay. What about you, Justine?
Ooh, for me, also not too much because it's just been too dang hot. I'm like, the kitchen is the evil place where it's more hot, so why would I want to go there? I did make a pasta dish, though, from Isa Chandra's cookbook. It reminded me of, I don't know if you guys remember, but during our BA days, I made a pasta dish from their website, which was like, this vegan pasta recipe, and I was like, this tastes like dirt. I don't know if you guys specifically remember that. I remember. It was very similar to that, but it did not taste like dirt, even though it still had walnuts in it, but it also had olives and Brussels sprouts in it. It was like a burnished Brussels sprout pasta dish you make all together on the stovetop.
Didn't it taste like dirt, raves Justine.
Yeah, that's like my highest raving. 10 stars, no dirt. I bought a new KitchenAid hand mixer.
You said you were thinking about that.
As soon as I sit down on my laptop, it's gonna happen. And then it did happen. And then it came really quickly. And then I have it. It's still in the box. I want to take it out and clean it up and just look at how pretty it is for a bit. And then be like, you're gonna make some cookies or something, you know?
When it's not too hot to bake.
Yeah, I don't know. Right now I'm like, ugh. But also, if I can get to a point where something is quickly made, I can just put it in the oven and then leave the kitchen. It's gonna do its thing, and then I'll come back and retrieve it, and then again immediately leave the kitchen. That's how I feel about it right now, because it's too hot. The end. How about you, Meg?
Well, speaking of flashing back to our Bon Appetit days, I made spicy chicken katsu sandwiches by Chris Morocco back in the day. There's a side dish episode with me making that. And it was a good recipe, and I've been really into tofu lately, and I thought to myself, I bet I could make this with a tofu cutlet instead of a chicken cutlet. And yes, lo and behold, I could. It was actually quite easy to do. The recipe translated really easily. It was really super good. I have definitely gotten a better hang on how to fry things on the stovetop. The thing that I cook with, it's not like a Teflon nonstick frying pan. It's a Le Creuset. I think it's ceramic or enamel. It's not cast iron. Anyway, it doesn't have that nonstick coating. So sometimes it's really annoying to cook stuff on it, like eggs. Eggs will just stick to it like nothing else. So frying stuff has always been a little bit tricky. Stuff likes to stick to the bottom of the pan, but the real trick is just to make sure your oil is really, really hot before you put anything in, and then nothing will really stick to the bottom of the pan. So I fried a tofu cutlet. I made it into a sandwich. I fried some pickles. It was great.
Pickle frying. Oh my God. How do you even? Your brain is magic.
I was pretty proud of myself because I was making the cutlets and I was like, wait a second, I have this dredging mixture, which is like a flour mixture, and then you dip it in egg and hot sauce in this case, and then you put panko on top. And I thought, that's probably all you need to make fried pickles, right? And yeah, that's all you need. Just dip it in all that stuff and you're good to go.
Amazing.
All right, let's head into Nadiya's very colorful, very set-dressed, not at all real kitchen for episode 3, Savory Bakes. Netflix has this description: get set to savor Nadiya's pepperoni pull-apart, baked noodles, easy tomato galette, and lavish petivier. Sourdough king Dan Nemeth takes a bow.
Okay. Also, yes, petivier. Petivier. I did not know how to say that word until she said it.
Me either.
I thought this episode was okay. I think mostly because it's a lot of meat stuff, I was like, meh. So that was probably maybe just me. What do you think?
I enjoyed this one. I still feel it's not necessarily needed that it is broken up by a random baker in the middle, but I super love brie. So the petivier with like the chicken and the brie, and I was like, ooh, that is totally something that I would serve at a party. I've been known for years, I always serve brie when I have a party. So this would be like a new way to kind of spice it up.
I love brie too. I do appreciate that she has given us at least one savory episode, and looking forward a little bit, I do see that she has other savory recipes here and there. My husband does not have a sweet tooth at all. He's weird. He hasn't had a dessert in literally 9 years.
Wow.
And it's insane. So I don't know if I'm going to make something savory for our potluck, but I'm just glad that this is here for options at least. So overall, I did enjoy this. I do agree with you, Justine, that there were some that I was like, oh, well, you know, that petivier looks good, but I personally wouldn't add the chicken to it. I think it'd be really easy to modify the pepperoni pull-apart to just not put slices of pepperoni in it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, should we start with the first recipe?
Pink pepper petivier.
It's like a tongue twister. So as Amanda was saying, this has puff pastry, spiced chicken, a whole thing of brie, cranberries, and a lot of other savory, spicy stuff.
Well, I'm gonna say what I always say, because I'm not a cheese lover. I'm like, that cheese is a bit much. That's me. I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate on the internet because everybody loves cheese, but I'm just like, that is a lot of cheese.
Brie is a cheese that I didn't used to like at all, but now I love it. And it is really easy. I've done this before, to just get a thing of puffed pastry and wrap a whole thing of brie in it and stick it in the oven. So I've made something a lot more simple than this, a very, very pared down version of this, which is just the puff pastry and the brie. And I got my puff pastry store bought. So, you know, this is like a fancier souped up version. It looked good.
Yeah, like I said, this is definitely something I would consider. I mean, I don't know if I would do the peppercorns and everything. Like, I could see myself making some sort of form of this for some sort of like dinner party or New Year's Eve something.
I do like the play of the other flavors. Of course, the garlic and onion, the cranberries. I mean, it seems really interesting. The pink peppercorn. Do you guys remember when Brad Leone was all about the pink peppercorn?
Pink peppercorn and sumac in everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Which just makes me think, I was like, oh, he's white guy discovering these spices. I think that the scoring of the puff pastry that she did looks fantastic. She always talks about, it's like the little details, and it's those like little details that sometimes I'm like, when I get to that point, and I'm like, oh, I've just been like working so hard up to this point. Do I really want to put in those little details that are just for presentation, or am I hella tired already?
The thing that I like about this presentation, and that I would say is a trend that I've noticed with the recipes so far, is that at first glance, they look way too complicated. Like, I was looking at these recipes online before I started watching the show, and I was like, wow, these all look really super fancy. They look difficult to make. But then when you actually get into the show, they're like pretty easy, I would say. The skill level isn't too difficult. And here she bought store-bought pastry, so she didn't even make the puff pastry. So that's a nice little shortcut. And the scoring, you would think that might be something that'd be like really difficult to do, but nope, she just whips out a knife and, you know, puts a little line in the top, and then you have this beautiful final dish.
Well, and I also think, honestly, that's kind of optional. Like, if you don't want to do all of that presentational thing at the end and you're trying to cut time, or, you know, just make something that you want to eat with like your family or whatever, I know that that's what makes it fancier, but like, I would think that if you didn't want to crimp and score, you could get away with not doing that.
Yeah, or you could stop at the egg wash, or you could probably not do the egg wash either, but you do get that nice burnished crispy top if you do that. So
Yeah, I like the egg wash just because that, like you said, it's got that textural element to it. I do like that that stop motion of like the puff pastry puffing up. That always looks so cool with puff pastry, because you see the layers and it's like
Yeah.
I love the oven cam that they have for this show. I think that it's one of the better oven cams I've seen. I don't even know how they fit it in there. Well, it's literally not in there. It would melt the camera, I'm sure. But it feels like it's right next to the food. I love it.
It does. That was one of my notes in this episode, is how much I'm loving those oven interior shots. And I find that it's the part that I'm looking forward to most. Like, when it gets to the bake part, is I'm like, ooh, I want to see the transformation in the oven.
Yeah, it's a fun little time lapse.
And it is a transformation. It's baking science magic.
That's not until the next episode. Hold your horses, Justine.
Ah.
The next recipe she made was the Pepperoni Pull-Apart. So this was kind of like pizza reimagined as a bread loaf.
I feel like British people especially love a pull apart.
They love a tear and share.
Hollywood. Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that the cheese she used looked just like American cheese slices. Like, I guess I don't think of that as a pizza cheese.
Oh, yeah. Did she say what kind of cheese it was? I thought it was mozzarella, but that was just the assumption I made. And you can get mozzarella slices.
But it was yellow. I think that's where it threw me off.
Okay, we're all going to the recipe right now. 8 cheese slices of your choice in the recipe.
Oh, choose your own adventure
Okay.
pizza. Yeah, this looked good. I have made similar accordion type breads where you put slices into the loaf pan and then it all cooks together. It'd be really easy to vegetarianize this for myself. Just don't add the pepperoni. It looks good.
I think it might even be easy to veganize this recipe. I could tweak this. I would tweak this, and it seemed pretty easy enough. What is the tomato hot sauce? What is that? What she said?
Yeah.
I think she used sriracha. That looked like a sriracha bottle to me.
Yeah, it looked like sriracha to me too.
It was sriracha sauce or chili/tomato sauce of your choice. God, it's all about your choice.
Just tell me what to do.
Sriracha would be too much for me. Maybe not. I've tried sriracha. It's not
I
bad.
find sriracha to be very sweet. I think that it would definitely work for a pizza analogy, because pepperoni pizza sauce is pretty sweet also, I'd say.
She's really going for the pizza aesthetic by putting the oregano in the dough.
Oregano.
I totally had to think for a second when I was like, oh, right, British. Because it was always oregano and the basil.
Everything sounds fancier. Speaking of the dough, I liked when she was punching it down and she was like, it's not aggression. I swear. She gives this look to the camera like it totally is aggression.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like,
Nadia.
it's just bread baking.
Olive oil brush at the end. That was intense, though. First I was like, what is that? And then she was like, olive oil. And I was just like, oh.
Yeah, I was like, is she putting butter on top? And then when she said olive oil, I was like, oh, I'm very intrigued. Okay, I'm down for this.
It definitely works for focaccia.
Focaccia!
Next up, Nadiya made teriyaki chicken noodles. So these were, I assume, rice noodles. It's what they looked like, along with chicken, spring onions, chilies, 6 cloves of garlic.
Woo! When I saw this recipe on the website, I immediately thought of Amanda.
I definitely, is it because of all of the garlic? Or it's like you just put it all in the oven and you let it go?
And you've also made a chicken dish before.
Yeah. I will admit that this was very intriguing to me. And my first thing was like, ooh, baked noodles? What kind of noodles? Are those rice noodles? And then I was thinking, like, once we were a little more settled in the house, I was thinking, like, that might be something that I could actually make, because my husband and I have very different work times, and we've been trying to figure out what are the things that I could make when I get home from work that I can then eat, and he can just re-warm up when he gets home several hours later. And this definitely was intriguing in that way.
Yeah, it looks easy to make. It looks like it would keep pretty well for leftovers or what have you. Well, I was going to say it looked aromatic, but how does something look aromatic?
6 cloves of garlic.
I assume it was aromatic because she told me so. I thought that this recipe was funny because she kept really underscoring that, oh my gosh, I'm baking noodles. Baking noodles, it's totally bonkers. And I was thinking, lasagna would like to have a word with you. Or baked ziti. I feel like it's not that unusual. Okay, maybe it's weird to bake rice noodles specifically, but I was like, yeah, baking noodles, sure, why not?
But I mean, at that point, they're in a marinade, so basically they're just boiling in the oven.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm gonna be like, you're just... It's a different heating element, but it's the same process.
Yeah.
I guess they decided that was the hook for this recipe, so they had to mention it a million jillion times.
Okay, so I looked up the recipe, and it says it's instant vermicelli noodles.
Yes.
Yeah, vermicelli's rice.
Okay, thank you. I did not know that until just now. I was today years old.
I'm surprised it said, instead of saying pasta of your choice.
Of your choice. Yeah, I think it's an interesting recipe. It looks simple. Make the marinade, bake the chicken. No, yes?
Yeah.
Yes, in the oven with the marinade. Would you be worried about chicken doneness?
Not until you just said that. Now I would be.
I'd be worried about overdoneness, if anything. I think it's really easy to overbake chicken, but just get yourself a meat thermometer and you're set.
I don't know what chicken does in the oven. I've never made chicken.
And the final recipe is the tomato galette. This looked really interesting to me at first, but I think she kind of lost me somewhere along the way because she just keeps adding so many things. When it got to the corn and the hummus, I was like, okay, I feel like this is too much. I feel like this is everything but the kitchen sink galette.
First of all, Nadiya, galettes are so summer 2019. Like, they had their moment. I think galettes are done with now.
Don't let my mom hear that. She loves galettes.
Oh no, she listens.
Oh no, Mary, don't hate us. Keep listening.
No, keep making galettes. But no, like, do you remember? This might have been just BA, but like, it was like such the thing.
Oh yeah, it was galette everything. There was an onion galette. I think they had their own tomato galette. There was definitely, I think, a peach and plum one, something like that. There were tons
they were
of
just
them.
like, guys, galettes. And I'm like, I heard ya.
Yeah. Well, I thought LJ had made one or two that summer or fall.
I think she made at least the onion galette. She might have made another one as well.
But I agree with you. I don't know. I see this galette. I see the tomatoes and the corn. And I'm like, this is just a pastry of things your stomach can't digest properly.
It started to become like a succotash almost. I think all you would have needed to make it a real succotash now would be like squash. But I don't know. I just thought it's too much. It's too much.
Also, what is brown sauce?
Okay. I wrote down, she's like, oh, you could just use brown sauce. And I wrote, we don't have brown sauce here.
That was one of the very first photos I took when I visited London. Was I was eating breakfast, and on the table was just this huge bottle of brown sauce.
What? That sounds gross. I don't know what it is, but it sounds gross.
It's a thing my birth father loved from when he lived in England, and he'd talk about it all the time. So, like, I'm aware of it. But I remember when I went to Scotland for the first time, he had me taste it. And for me, I wasn't thrilled by it. I was just like, okay.
What did it taste like?
To me, it had too much of a almost gravy-y.
Back to American podcast Googles.
Welcome back to another chapter. All right, so Wikipedia says the ingredients include a varying combination of tomatoes, molasses, dates, apples, tamarind, spices, vinegar, and sometimes raisins.
I was gonna guess tamarind in there somewhere.
I feel like it's if ketchup and Worcestershire sauce had a baby, kind of. Not great.
Yeah. Interesting.
I mean, I don't think any of us are gonna make this one. This one also didn't enamor me. Yeah, I think if for the U.S. audience, you'd be fine just using tamarind.
Seek thee out, ye old brown sauce.
One thing I did like during this part, though, because she said it earlier in the episode, is she kept going, oh, it's bags of flavor. And I was like, I've never heard anything said like, oh, it's bags of flavor before. And I just found that entertaining.
There were a few terms that she used repeatedly in these two episodes, and I'm guessing we'll hear them a lot more throughout the show, but bags of flavor, give it a whiz in the mixer, which I always find funny because that sounds very different to us Americans. And she's always very excited when she takes something out of the oven and she's like, look at it, look at it, look at it.
Yeah. She says shop bought instead of store bought. It's the little things.
Yeah.
It's like bizarro world. But in our differences, we come together.
Poor LJ will probably listen back and be like, ugh, you guys. Brown sauce.
I mean, if she wants to defend London, she's got to come back on the podcast.
Yeah.
That's the way it works.
Yeah. We're going to keep talking shit about... No.
Moving on. The special guest for this episode was Dan Nemeth. He is an award-winning baker who makes beetroot sourdough. That's what he's best known for.
He does have passion for the dough.
Yeah. I was like, aw, he's a bread nerd.
Something I liked about this spotlight chef and the chocolatier coming up in the next episode is that they were both very vocal, at least, about their passion. I'm sure that everyone they spotlight in the show is passionate about baking because they've made it, their thing in life. But you could really tell just in these short interviews that this was something that they really appreciate and enjoy and that they've built their lives around. So I think that that definitely translates to the final product as well. I'm sure everything they make is delicious.
I liked his accent.
I like their big bucket of starter.
That was a big bucket.
I like the fresh grated beetroot. I like that it makes a pink dough. I think it's interesting that it takes 3 days to make a loaf and he slaps each one of them individually.
I loved that the dough was pink, but then when it was baked, it just looked like normal dough. That was really interesting to me. I expected it to look pinker in the final product.
I would eat that bread.
Yeah.
Me
He was
too.
doing some bread ASMR where he was like crunching it and tapping it and just...
The S in ASMR stands for sourdough.
10 out of 10. No dirt.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here for a commercial, and we'll be right back to talk about episode 4, Baking with Chocolate. And we're back to talk about Nadiya Bakes baking with chocolate. Netflix says, chocolate caramel flan, edgy madeleines, and roasted fruit cobbler see Nadiya taking a new tack with a sweet staple. Chocolatier Anish Popat stops in.
This episode was yummy.
So Nadiya starts the show by saying that this is chocolate heaven with dangerously delicious bakes. And she also said that if someone ever says, I don't like chocolate, it stops the conversation. It's like a record scratch. And I've mentioned on the podcast before, I don't know if I'd go so far as to say I don't like chocolate, but it's definitely not top tier dessert for me. Like almost every single time, if you're like, hey, here's a slice of chocolate cake and here's a slice of vanilla cake, which one would you rather have? I would almost always choose the vanilla cake. So I don't think I'm going to make any of the recipes in this episode.
That's fair.
See, I've stopped the conversation.
Record scratch. One of my best friends from high school, actively, she does not like chocolate. We actually had a discussion about this recently. Oh, that I went to a restaurant with her. I should have said that earlier. Oh, well, I forgot. I don't know. As I get older, as I was watching this, I was thinking about how I still like chocolate, but as I age, I prefer chocolate with something, like not just by itself. I like it with nuts or with caramel or with peanut butter. Like I like something to kind of complement it.
I like chocolate.
Well, maybe you would like the first recipe she made, which is money can't buy you happiness brownies. She explains that money can't buy you happiness, but brownies can.
Can buy you happiness.
This has 3 layers. It's got brownies, dulce de leche caramel, and orange cheesecake on top.
Okay, so is anybody else thinking about Chabibo?
Yes.
And then I'm just like, British people, can't you just not make a simple brownie? Even though this one looks good. This one looked really good. And I was just curious. I was like, if this one was on that episode, would Paul have been like, I actually like this?
I wrote, Nadiya would not have a brownie fail.
Okay.
It looked like a legit brownie to me. When they showed the brownie cooking in the oven, you could see that crackle on top, which is a very important element. And the inside did look fudgy and gooey. So as we talked about, that's what you need, right? You need a fudgy center. It can't be too fluffy or spongy like cake, because then it's just a cake. It's not a brownie. And it needs that crispy crackle on top. And she even pointed out in the show, you need a fudgy brownie. And she said, don't use self-rising flour for this, because you will just make a cake.
Yeah, I think maybe that's what those bakers' mistakes were, using their... Because I feel like they use self-raising flour for, like, everything. So they were just like, oh, here's the flour.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's possible that might have been what they did. And
That's
that, I think, would also explain why some of those bakers didn't get the crackle on top.
I will say her cheesecake layer looked super, super thin, so...
I actually liked that because cheesecake is also not my god-tier dessert level. So I'm like, oh, it's just a little bit of cheesecake. That looks good.
I had
do
that same thought.
Yeah, as long as it's mostly brownie, I was like, this passes. I feel like I'm extra judgy on brownies now because of everything that's happened.
And I'm definitely also pro nut in a brownie, and I liked that she included the hazelnuts in this.
This definitely passes the brownie thing, because she even said if you want to just stop at that first layer and just have a perfectly good brownie, you can stop there. But she likes all the other stuff. And I agree with the nuts. I thought that the way that she did the layers, it would make a very interesting texture, this brownie. And like a good way, not like, that's an interesting texture. But I think it would be good to have, like you said, that very thin layer of cheesecake so it's not overpowering, and then you get like the crunchiness of the dulce de leche and the nuts, and then kind of that fudgy gooey brownie. This looked so good, and I want brownies now.
Yeah, I'm like, you describing it, I was like, yum, yum, yum.
It does look really indulgent, though. I think that one bite of this would be enough.
1 square.
Yeah, I was gonna say at least one square.
1 inch square.
And it's got the cocoa powder on top.
Oh, yes.
It looked very tiramisu in presentation.
Yes, and I do like she had the orange zest in the cream cheese layer. So like the orange zest, almond extract, dulce de leche, hazelnut, chocolate brown. All those things, they go together.
They do.
Once again, she's thinking about contrast and complementary textures and flavors, and I do think the orange zest would cut through the richness of the chocolate in a nice way.
A+ brownie. A+.
She's got salt, fat, acid, and heat all in one brownie.
Wow.
Next, she made roasted fruit cobbler.
This one threw me off because, one, she kept calling it cobbles. And I was like, well, I'm putting all the cobbles on top. And this is an American dish. And I'm thinking, my grandma made cobbler all the time when I was a kid. And not once did I ever hear anyone say, I'm putting cobbles on top.
I had some objections to this as well for kind of similar reasons. I don't want to be too much of a traditionalist because, anyway, this was a little too non-traditional for me. When I think of cobbler, the topping to me is more like a biscuit or even like a dumpling, and the cobbles, the chocolate cobbles, just didn't give me that same feeling. I was like, this would be tasty, I'm sure, but if I was expecting and wanting a cobbler and I got this, I don't think it would scratch the itch.
I have no cobbler cobbles expectations, and this looked yummy to me.
I also questioned the chocolate cobbler part because I was thinking it would be so dark, it would be hard to tell when it's baked well, because that's part of the thing when you bake a cobbler is like knowing when it's that golden brown on the top.
The end result did not look as crispy as I would expect a cobbler to be, but maybe it was. It's hard to tell just from looking at it.
I thought it was interesting. Her fruit chunks of the peaches and plums, they were big chunks.
They were very big.
They were just like quartered peaches and plums, and I'm like, damn.
That definitely is going to cook down in the oven, though.
Yeah.
That will translate to a smaller bite in the end.
That's true. And I like the blueberries. She put mint, lemon zest, desiccated coconut in those cobbles.
I did like the coconut in the cobbles. I love me some coconut.
Yeah. I was just like, lady, you're a genius.
I guess that's the thing, is most of this, like all the fruit stuff, I was like, yes, I'm on board. I love peaches. I love all of that stuff. And then I also thought poor LJ hates a baked fruit dish, but
She's not here, is she? No, I'm just kidding.
I feel like this is the episode where we're like, LJ, you better come back soon.
We're gonna riot.
We miss you angrily. But I did think, oh, poor LJ would not be a fan of this. But yeah, so much of the fruit stuff I was really into. My part was just the cobbler cobble part that I questioned, but all that fruit, give it to me. I love a baked blueberry.
I know this is the chocolate episode, but I would definitely make this recipe minus the cocoa powder and the chocolate chips and the cobbles. I think it'd be good.
Amanda's anti-cobble.
It just makes me think of shoes. But she's like, the cobbles. And I'm like, are we making shoes? No, we're baking. I know it's called a cobbler, but that... Yeah.
I mean, I think it's based off of the word cobblestone because it looks like a cobblestone path. And I assume, therefore, that a single cobblestone can also be called a cobble.
Your logic is sound, Meg.
Yeah.
And I am crazy.
But that's one thing I haven't Googled for this episode, so I'm just throwing that out there.
That's what I thought of too, but also, I mean, like, I'm from New England.
I had another question about this recipe. So she calls it a pudding multiple times. She even calls it the feel-good pud. But in our last episode, she defined a pudding as something where there's always custard. And there was no custard in this recipe, so I still have pudding questions.
Did she put ice cream on top? Is that the thing?
No.
I don't think so. She put the melted chocolate on top.
But I think in her reality, she would put the cold thing. You know how she likes combining the hot with the cold.
But there's no custard. She said custard and spoon equals pudding.
Does the custard... British question. Does the custard have to be originally in the bake, or can it be added after to be a pudding? Why are these words?
I feel like this is going to be our theme throughout this whole season is, what is a pudding?
What's a pudding?
I'm having a mental breakdown, I swear.
Okay, something that's definitely not a pudding is the treacle anise madeleines with chocolate, which was the next recipe she made.
Sounds very British. Treacle anise madeleines. These looked okay. I don't know. I've seen people make madeleines on the Jabibo. Mm-hmm. And Kim Joy's got a madeleine recipe.
She got a good hump in her madeleine.
Yeah, which, as I learned from Jabibo, is a necessary element, having that humped back. Madeleines are something that I think look pretty. They look dainty. They kind of fall between a cookie and a cake, where I think I'd rather commit to one or the other. It looks good. I think they're pretty. I like that they kind of look like seashells with that scalloped edge. Don't know if I would go out of my way to make these, but I did appreciate, of all the recipes in this episode, this only had a little element of chocolate, a little hint of chocolate that just complemented the rest of the cookie. So I liked that it wasn't overboard with the chocolate.
Just on the wonk.
Well, and I thought it was interesting as we hear more about Nadiya's family that her mom does not like chocolate.
Yeah, Nadiya's always gossiping to us about her family. My mom doesn't like chocolate. My husband will eat everything in sight. Like,
my husband will eat a whole cake.
we're just like Nadiya's girlfriends coming over for a gab, you know?
Oh, yeah.
I would happily go over to her place if she's going to bake something for everyone. That'd be wonderful.
I don't know. I got nothing on Madeleines. I really kind of don't still know what they are, sort of thing.
I like that. Like, I like to eat Madeleines. There was a family I babysat for years, and we wouldn't make them, but we would, like, the youngest girl really loved Madeleines, so we'd always get them at Starbucks or, like, Kroger, like, pick up a thing. So I like to eat them, but I don't know that I would want to go through all of the thing to make them. Like, to me, it's just kind of a nice little treat that you can easily store by.
The thing about Madeleines is that it's one of those things that requires a very specific type of kitchen equipment. In this case, you need a baking pan that's specifically for Madeleines and nothing else. So it's not a very multi-purpose piece of kitchenware to have. So maybe that's why I've never made these.
It's like the angel food cake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in fact, my friend was moving out of state and she was like, do you want my Madeleine tray? And even then I was like, nah, I don't think I'm going to make those. All right, well, we're bored with that. So let's go to the next one. We end the episode with a bang with the chocolate caramel flan.
Woo!
Cake magic.
This one was interesting. She did call it magic many times. She said if unicorns could bake, she imagined they'd bake something like this. So basically what makes it magic, so to speak, is that she has a bundt cake pan, and she starts by putting the salted caramel, creme caramel, at the bottom of the pan, which will then be the top of the cake once it's turned out. And then she puts the cake batter, and then she puts the custard on top of the cake batter. But what happens in the oven is that basically the custard and the cake batter magically swap places so that by the time you turn out the cake, they've flip-flopped in their order.
I feel like it has to have something to do with gravity and weight or something, but cake magic, man. Cake magic.
Density.
And something with them not combining. They have enough of difference of texture that they don't just cook together into one layer.
So I was trying to figure out, and I was like, how is this figured out so where you wouldn't put the caramel, then the custard, then the chocolate? Is it because, like, at that point, the custard is very, very liquidy, and then the chocolate cake is very, very dense, and then...
That's my guess, is I think if you tried to put the cake batter on top of the custard at that point, it would just, like, push through. I think it has to do with, like, something about their... No one can see me moving my hands back and forth.
Their chemical composition.
I don't know. I'm not a cake wizard, but...
But you could be, if you believe.
Clap if you believe.
What was cool, though, I don't know what kind of blew my mind, was the tea towel in the oven.
Yeah, and that didn't catch fire or explode or something.
Or explode.
Explode.
I don't know. You know, those pesky exploding tea towels.
Yeah, my mind, I know it makes sense, but then my mind doesn't want it to make sense.
I guess it must have just been a pretty low temperature. To be honest, I didn't even clock this at all, so I don't know.
Yeah, right. I don't know the temperature, because I think it was like at 160 for like an hour. So yeah, I don't know what that means.
In American.
I know, at one point she was like, 180 degrees. And I was like, man, that's a really low temp. And then I was like, oh, right. Celsius, Amanda. We're in England.
But yeah, so the tea towel is kept at the bottom of the steam tray with the bundt pan on top so it wouldn't wobble around. She poured the water just right on top of that thing. So there's just like water in there, but the towel's still in there. So the towel will not explode because it's wet. I'm like, Amanda, are you sure you want to buy an oven?
My husband really wants one, so. And it's going to be a gas oven. That's the thing. I don't know what I'm doing, guys.
Oh my god. Well, okay, so the flan, the whole thing, it looked pretty impressive. And she cut the cross section, took it out, and she was just like, whoa, 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 whoa. And I was like, damn.
It looked good. It looked very good.
Good jiggle on it. Looked tasty. Looked silky. Pretty indulgent. Again, I would have like one bite of this and be like, I'm good. The person that they spotlighted in this episode was Anish Popat, and he is a chocolatier. And Justine kind of hinted at this in the beginning. He talks about how there's a science to making chocolate. He actually started out as a scientist in a way, I believe he said. He studied maths. And he talks a lot about how it's a combination of art and science and expression to make chocolate.
Yeah, any tempered chocolate on the table.
Claire Saffitz has left the chat. Yeah, so he made a chocolate tart with chocolate ganache, and apparently the ganache was unique because he did not use a dairy product in it. There was no milk or cream. It was just a water-based ganache.
It's just vegan food, people. We've been making this for a while.
And he put berries and even more chocolate and some of that fancy schmancy edible gold on top.
Chocolate on top of chocolate with some chocolate on there. There's a lot of chocolate.
That's a lot of chocolate.
It was a lot of chocolate. He's like, oh, I can make you a chocolate tart.
Yeah, it's chocolate. It looked good. I don't know what else to say about it.
Yeah, these segments, I'm just like, and this person made a thing. Good for them and their business.
Go check them out on Instagram, I guess.
That is them.
Yeah, I feel like even this one more than the one with the Savory Bakes. I was just like, all right, random guy now. He does things. Oh, look, he tempered chocolate differently. I was just like, okay, let's get back to Nadiya.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do kind of feel that way too. And it did really stand out, I feel, in this episode that Nadiya wasn't there to talk to them or to try the food, because at the end she said something like, this is one of the most amazing chocolate things I've ever had. And I was like, is that true? Did you actually eat the thing that he made, or is this a lie because you were not there to film remotely? It just felt insincere to me.
Calling Nadiya a liar.
She very well may have had it. I don't want to say that she's lying, but it felt, let's just say, manufactured when, I don't know.
Yeah.
Television.
All right, well, that's going to do it for Nadiya Bakes for this episode. Let's move on to our back burner. On today's back burner, it's Hot Rick Summer. We're going to be talking all about Rick Martinez and what he's been up to lately. Most exciting, he has a brand new show on the Babish Culinary Universe YouTube channel and is called Prébalo, and the first episode just premiered yesterday as of recording.
Yeah. The title literally translates to, like, try this. Like, I've made this for you. Put it in your face.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And Rick explains that this is the concept for the show. He wants to show us viewers the favorite places for him to go in Mazatlan and around Mexico, and what he loves to eat and what he would love for us to check out.
I've got a couple thoughts on the first episode. I think it's more of a mood than a show. I mean, it's a show, but it is quite a mood.
Yes.
I would agree with that. It's almost like tone poem of a cooking show as opposed to just a cooking show, because like you said, it's the mood. It's just like, especially in the first half, I feel like just a lot of shots of like, here's the feel of this place and all the things going on.
Yeah, he doesn't even talk a lot like when he's cooking either. He just like, oh yeah, awesome.
It reminded me a lot of Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat in this way. It's like part travel log, and in this case, I'd say more travel log than food show. Yeah. And I did think it was funny that he didn't narrate any of the recipe. It's kind of like he's the anti-Babish. It's like, Babish narrates everything. I'm going to narrate nothing. I'm not sure how I feel about that, because just an offhand observation. I felt like the captions for the recipes went by way too quickly. I couldn't follow along with what was happening in the recipe. And there was at least one typo that I saw. So I was like, okay, if you're going to base the recipe on the written captions, I feel like there needs to be a little bit more thought put into it.
The color choice on those two was a little bit, it was too dark. It wasn't very eye-catching.
I didn't realize they were there at first, to be honest.
Yeah,
they go by very quickly. The recipe itself did look very tasty. He made lobster tacos with a fresh salsa. It was very colorful, the recipe itself and the whole episode. It had some, I would say, almost ASMR elements. A lot of the cooking segments were just like, they definitely mic'd up that food and slicing it and preparing it.
It reminded me a lot of the other YouTube channel that I've recommended in the past, Bong Eats. A lot of that. My other thought was this gorgeous, high-quality production value. Where was that for Stump Sola?
Right?
For reals. This is a very beautiful show.
Yeah, I kept thinking, the production on this is, it's top-notch there. Everything looks very luxe and lush.
So yeah, bottom line, I enjoyed this. I'll definitely tune in for the next episode. I appreciated that it was under 10 minutes long.
Yeah. I knew you would say that. Rick's got that new show. He also has other things.
Yeah, so Rick also has his Sweet Heat show on Food 52's YouTube channel, and it was recently nominated for 2 Digital Media Awards from the International Association of Culinary Professionals. This is apparently a very high professional honor from a prestigious institution. They won't announce the winners until October, I believe, but best of luck to Rick and Sweet Heat. I would also recommend checking out that show. Also, Hawa Hassan, Claire Saffitz, and Oh She Glows, Justine's favorite, are also nominees in other categories.
Speaking of Food 52, here's another connection to my new TV, it's an LG television. So we got all these like LG channels, and one of them is a Food 52 channel.
Oh, nice. That's cool.
Oh, yeah. All that free TV.
Oh, hey. And Jeremy's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, don't worry. You have no idea because you don't listen to the podcast. But this is a thing we've discussed before on Pod Appétit.
One last update about Rick. We'll probably talk about this more when the actual date approaches, but he has a new cookbook coming out in spring of 2022. It's titled Mi Cocina, and it'll be available to pre-order soonish. So yeah, keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, he's been putting hints here and there, the photos and stuff on his Instagram stories.
I'm sure it will be as beautiful as the show and everything else Rick makes.
Yeah, Rick doesn't do anything half-assed. He's always like the beauty and everything.
The aesthetic.
Yeah.
All right, and as always, we're going to end the show with a few shout-outs. Paul from the Varmints podcast said of our Stump Sola potluck episode, "Y'all absolutely killed it. Well done."
Yeah,
Thank
we did.
you, Paul. A lot of people were really excited by our announcement that we were covering Nadiya Bakes next. So some people who chimed in were Artie, Margaret, Julia, aka Lila, Mary, Fiona, Angela, Aaron, and the Edmonton Tourist. And yes, the Edmonton Tourist, you're welcome to give us pointers about non-American things. So there's a lot of Nadiya fans out there, and we hope that you are enjoying this new season so far. We also want to extend a big thank you to Mrs. Casper for supporting the show by buying merch. You can also snag your own swag at podappetit.threadless.com. And finally, we don't have a review to share this week, but we did get some lovely fan mail from David. David wrote, "Hi all, I absolutely love your podcast and can feel the friendship you all have every episode. I think a cool future competition show for y'all to watch is The Final Table. It's like Chef's Table, but a competition, with each episode taking on a new country's cuisine. Looking forward to your next episode." So thank you, David, and thanks for the suggestion for what to watch. It got me thinking that I do think it would be fun to do a competition show again sometime in the future.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I looked this one up, and I think the kind of international cuisine of it would be a good fit for us. It looked like something I would be down for watching.
Yeah, I think it was also suggested to us by other listeners during our March Madness, but it didn't make the final cut at that point. But yeah, we'll see. So thank you again, David. And everyone else who's listening, if you want to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, we'd really appreciate it, and we'll read it right here on the podcast. And be sure to tune in to our next episode, where we will continue our coverage of Nadiya Bakes with episode 5, Bakes to Share, and episode 6, Baking on a Budget.
Taryn shares.
Thanks for listening to Pod Appétit Gourmet Takes.
We'd love to hear from you, so find us on Twitter and Instagram at pod_appétit.
And on Facebook at Pod Appétit Podcast.
You can also email us at podappetitpodcast@gmail.com and find all of our episodes on our website, podappetitpodcast.com.
Hi, it's Carolyn
And Vanessa
from Not Another X-Files podcast.
We're the female-led X-Files podcast you didn't even know you were looking for.
We've got plenty of opportunities for nostalgia, conspiracies, forbidden romance, and plenty of laughs.
It's true. Come on over to our place in Vancouver, Canada, and revisit your favorite 90s sci-fi TV show.
You'll be glad you stopped by. You can find us on all your favorite podcast spots.
And on the web at notanotherxfpod.libsyn.com.
Bye.
Bye.
Music for this promo by Purple Planet.